So a little bit of background on myself. I'm non-binary. I'm an abuse survivor. I did the trigger warning activism at Rutgers that landed me in the New York Times, BBC, Huffington Post. Basically, I did a lot of interviews based on that, a lot of kind of harassment I got from that. And I wanted to take the activism I did there and bring it into kind of abuse activism, which brought me into the summer and now basically to here. Hello everyone, today we're going to do something a little bit more serious in tone and breaks away from video gaming to a certain extent. Today we're starting a series that I'm going to be continuing to do for the next few, probably weeks, which I'll be going over the original Zoe post that was posted and going over the different kind of realms of abuse and emotional abuse that are exhibited within the behavior of ZoeQuinn within the post. After I spent about a month talking to people about the content of the post, talking to Iran and talking to other people that have known either Zoe or people around Zoe, I feel like something's being lost right now in understanding the post exactly. A lot of people have not read it or have not read the logs, or they've read the logs, they don't really understand what they're looking at, which is been a big problem. So I want to kind of set the tone for people to understand where I'm coming from when I say that I think ZoeQuinn is abusive in them. I'm doing this as an individual who's deeply concerned about what I saw and deeply concerned about what's continuing to go on in gaming right now. So that's really the focus I want to take. But to begin, before I do my analysis of today's episode, which will mostly focus on blame shifting, I want to read a little bit about emotional abuse so we're all on the same page, basically. So, according to studentaffairs.illinois.edu, they have an article called "What is Emotional Abuse?" Abuse is any behavior that is designed to control and subjugate another human being through the use of fear, humiliation, and verbal or physical assaults. Emotional abuse is any kind of abuse that is emotional rather than physical in nature. It can include anything from verbal abuse and constant criticism to more subtle tactics such as intimidation, manipulation, and refusal to ever be pleased. Emotional abuse is like brainwashing in that it systematically wears away at the victim's self-confidence, sense of self-worth, trust in their own perceptions, and self-concept. Whether it is done by constant berating and belittling, by intimidation, or under the guise of guidance, teaching, or advice, the results are similar. Eventually, the recipient of the abuse loses all sense of self and remnants of personal value. Emotional abuse cuts to the very core of a person, creating scars that may be far deeper and more lasting than physical ones. There's different forms of emotional abuse. According to the website, the few they have is aggressing, denying, and minimizing. For this series, I'm going to focus piece by piece in the abusive patterns that I noticed in the post. And I'm doing this from the perspective of a survivor. I, myself, am a survivor. So by doing this, I hope it's very clear that I'm not communicating as an outsider, as someone who has been in a situation very similar to Ron's, that I understand where he's coming from, and I understand very clearly how this is showing signs of abuse. So I want to make that clear that I'm doing this as someone who has been in these situations before, that has been through these emotional situations before of abuse. I really want to make that obvious to everyone watching this. So also I'm going to pull up this thing from the Willow Domestic Violence Center called Healthy versus Abusive Relationships. I want to make it clear before we get into this, because today's topic is very, very nuanced, what a healthy relationship looks like. So in a healthy relationship, you feel safe and comfortable with each other. Communication is open and spontaneous. You listen to each other and feel that you are heard. You decide things together. You can express your feelings without fear of your partner's reactions. Rules and boundaries are clearly defined, yet allow for flexibility if you desire change. Feelings and needs are expressed, appreciated, and respected by both. You can be together as a couple without losing your sense of yourself. Personal growth, change, and exploration are encouraged for each by each. Both have meaningful relationships and interests outside the relationship. You can each take responsibility for your own behaviors and happiness. You do not try to change or control your partner, and vice versa. You can say no without feeling guilty about it. There is a balance of giving and receiving. Each person can enjoy being alone, and requests for privacy are respected. Now, the reason why I go over the kind of guidelines of a healthy relationship, I want to make it very clear that what's going on within the post from Zoe is not healthy. And in fact, it's very subtly not healthy. I think it's been hard for people to recognize that this is more than just quote-unquote dirty laundry, because it's done so subtly for Iran. But it's very clear when the pattern is put together what's actually going on. And I think it's so clear and so kind of, the extent is so far that we can't even do this in one video. There's so many things to talk about. This video's focus is going to be minuscule compared to the guilt tripping and suicidal threat things that go on. So I really want to focus that this is very subtly done. It's very kind of calculated, and it's something that you wouldn't notice right away if you're not familiar with it. But if you are familiar with it, it stands out like a sore thumb. That said, let's get on today's focus, which is blame shifting. So let me read. This is from Hidden Hurt Domestic Abuse Information, and I swear this is the last thing I'm going to read, and then we'll get into it. They have these two sections, and I'm going to return to this again and again throughout the rest of this series. They have these two sections: blame shifting for problems, blame shifting for feelings. So let's start. Blame shifting for problems. Very rarely will an abusive personality accept responsibility for any negative situation or problem. If they're unemployed, can't hold down a job, were thrown out of college, etc., etc., it is always someone else's fault, be it the boss, the government, or their mother. They may feel that someone is always doing them wrong, or out to get them. He, she may make a mistake and then blame you for upsetting him, her, or preventing him, her from doing as they wish to. I want to make this clear that this is not just something that will be done to the survivor, but is also a situation where the blame is shifted outside of the relationship, maybe to someone that previously harmed the abuser. Maybe it's shifted to sociocultural kind of ramifications, power dynamics. Blame shifting for feelings. The abuser will deny feelings stem from within him, her, but see them as reactions to your behavior or attitude toward him, her. He, she may tell you that you make me mad, you're hurting me by not doing what I ask, or that he, she cannot help feeling mad, upset, etc. The latter is especially something we're going to want to focus on. The role that you cannot help the way I feel is something that continuously appears in the post. Anyway, feelings may be used to manipulate you. I would not be angry if you didn't, ... Positive emotions will often also be seen as originating outside the abuser, but are more difficult to detect. Statements such as, you make me happy, or you make me feel good about myself, are also signs that the abuser feels you're responsible for his sense of well-being. Again, this is something we're going to see a lot. The idea of, you make me happy, you are too important to me, etc., is something that appears a lot from Zoe in the post. Either way, you become in his, her mind the cause of good and bad feelings, and are therefore responsible for his, her emotional well-being and happiness. Consequently, you are also to blame for any negative feelings, such as anger, upset, or depression. So, going through this a little bit, these are starting kind of criteria. We'll be pulling back to these original two paragraphs as we go through the post. So let's start. My first section, these are all pulled straight from the primary logs, or a primary source from the original Zoe post. And this one, it's dated 7/14. I'll read the passages and we'll talk about it. So, you don't have sex with people unless there is something emotional there, including friendship. Why and when did you cheat on me with Robin and Josh, and how long did it go on? With Robin, it was once during Game Jam. Everything was fucked up, and I was drunk and lonely and fucking miserable. I want to stop right there. Everything was fucked up, and I was drunk and lonely and fucking miserable becomes the justification for the cheating. So it's an outside source. It's, I was drunk, I was lonely, I was miserable, therefore I did something that hurt you. It's not, I did something wrong and I apologize. It's, the outside sources led me to doing something wrong. So that's where the shifting responsibility comes from in this particular picture. But that's just one example. Unhealthy behavior, anyone can do that. Let's move on to another example. This one's pretty hefty. 7/14, up until when I told you the first time it was one thing, and I think I was just resigned to it after you said you basically couldn't love anyone. And after hearing that, it just kind of rotted, and I couldn't fully understand you, and I thought I was close with you, but it didn't fully feel like it. And then after we broke up and you sent me the letter, everything changed, and I saw you differently, or I guess actually at all, I still had feelings for you. For a little context, basically what happened was, around in February had said that he had never loved anyone before, and Zoe had loved him at the time, said, I love you. And it took a month for Iran to fall in love with Zoe. But what's important about this post is what we came in the first two phrases. And I think I was just resigned to it after you said you basically couldn't love anyone. And after hearing that, it just kind of rotted, and I couldn't fully understand you. The way these phrases are written, it's almost as if the shortcoming of Iran's current situation, that he feels like basically couldn't love anyone, is something to be blamed for Zoe's feelings, as in the way that Iran reacts is inherently causing Zoe to feel bad, which isn't necessarily the case. Zoe's reacting, and everyone reacts to bad or good situations that they feel. However, Zoe's thrusting her emotions, she's thrusting the responsibility of her emotions onto Iran instead of saying, well, no, the responsibility rests with me and let me debunk why I feel this way. So basically the problem here is that Zoe is taking her personal response to what she hears about Eren as an individual and is directly applying it as if he is responsible for how she feels, which isn't the case. She is responsible for how she feels, inherently. This goes back actually to what we discussed in healthy relationships, which is that, again, it's not just taking responsibility for your actions and your behaviors and your emotions, but also this idea of that you cannot help how you feel. She cannot help feeling mad, upset, etc. As you see, basically it's this idea that the reaction of I can't love you because of personal reason is used to justify Zoe's reaction without Zoe taking responsibility for her own emotions. So let's move on now to this next one. So where do you want me to start? Where it started. We started getting close on the Vegas trip. Tell me what that entails. I was feeling like a massive piece of shit and dealing with a lot of shit after Game Jam, and he and I got along stupidly well. You mean after Josh? Yeah, and Robin, and seeing you, but still feeling like you weren't even really part of my life and feeling awful because you said you loved me at the airport and it felt empty, and again, not trying to blame you, just telling you reasons. I want to stop right there to identify how unhealthy this is. So as you see in the 7:14, 7 o'clock post, seeing you but still feeling like you weren't even really part of my life and feeling awful because you said something. Right there. I feel awful because you did something to me and that made me feel empty because of what you did. Not I feel empty because of my own reason that is a reaction to what you said or did. Therefore, I am responsible for my emotions in reacting to you. Instead, Zoe thrusts the responsibility on Aran, saying, you did something to me, therefore, what you did to me makes you responsible for my reaction. There's a problem here with that seems continuous now of Zoe not being able to basically take responsibility for how she feels in relation to what's going on. So let's go to the next one. You know what else is fucked up? Cheating on someone. It doesn't stop being true that those are things you shouldn't do. Yes, big and little things. My concern there was reciprocity and genuineness. Like you were actively rebounding while specifically telling me how horrible a thing it would be for me to do. It's hard to feel terrifically reciprocal when you fall in love with someone who tells you that they won't ever love you back. Sorry, again, Iran actually captures this in the log, what's happening. So manipulate them instead. And when this happens, Zoe immediately backtracks and backpedals saying, it's my bad, I never told you how much that fucking hurt, really should have just left. But Zoe put it out there originally. It's hard to feel some way when someone does something to me. Not I am control and own my emotions, but what you have done makes me feel X emotions. Not taking responsibility for your emotions, but thrusting them onto the individual. Thrusting them onto the outside person instead of identifying how emotions are completely owned by the individual. Again, this is not a healthy way of thinking about things. Next one. Did you not even realize this is not even one of the things you cried and felt horrible over having done to me while I was panicking? It's the parallel. I'm sorry if I take a little respond. I'm having a massive panic attack and trying to push through it because fuck me anyway. And I'm not sure how to describe it, but I didn't sit there and plan, hey, I should do this. It was all on the spot. Idiot shit. It was a series of stupid, awful things. I think we can stop right there. I really want to focus particularly on the panic attack. Now, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks, all the fucking time. One of the things, though, with my panic attacks is I've gotten them when people have told me or called me out on shit I've done, things that were hurtful, that hurt other people. And what I learned quickly from the past 6 or 7 years of having fleas is that when you're having a panic attack, there's two ways to handle it. A healthy way and an unhealthy way. You can tell someone, I'm sorry, I'm going through things right now. Give me 5 seconds. I need to calm down. I'm just not in a good place. And then we can talk about things. Or you can say, I'm having a fucking panic attack. You're making me feel like shit right now. Fuck this things. We can't talk about it because I feel like shit right now. The things you're saying to me are making me feel panicked and upset. And I'm not in control of my emotions. You are in control of my emotions and making me feel this way. And this is, again, what we see. And we've seen this continuously. We're only a few logs in. It's this kind of focus on what you do is making me feel a certain way, not I feel a certain way in reaction to what you do. I'm in control of my emotions. Zoe never says that. Zoe makes it clear that it's Iran that is making her feel like shit. It's changing the responsibility. Zoe basically puts all the responsibility for these things on Iran instead of owning up to Zoe's own kind of emotions. And again, I'm having a massive panic attack, using that panic attack, kind of weaponizing it to say basically that she's upset having what should be an open conversation, which should be an open, healthy conversation about problems going on within the relationship. Instead, it's deflecting it. And we see that Zoe also does a little bit of guilting on the bottom. It fucking happened. I became the fucking monsters I grew up being fucking abused by. I became the shitbag I married. Oh my god. I'm not going to focus on guilt tripping, but this log is going to return again because we're going to want to continue and kind of look into it. So the next one. This one's a fucking mess. So 7:14, Zoe Quinn comes out of nowhere. I should kill myself. Aaron says, stop that. And Zoe goes, you should run from me. Don't take me back. I'm a fucking monster. I do fucking love you so fucking much now. I can't fucking believe this. I thought I was past all this shit. I thought I got out of this shit. This is done very subtly, but I think it's clear where that Zoe is... In short, Zoe is acting that the conversation brings out the suicidal part of her that wouldn't have come out otherwise if the conversation had never happened. This is part of the guilt tripping, but I think also it's part of the responsibility issue of what's going on. Basically, Zoe's saying, by bringing up this situation, I have no other response but to say I should kill myself and I can't take it anymore. And I do want to say that if an individual feels suicidal, that's a serious issue. But I do think it's clear from the way that, well, both from the way that Zoe has been discussing things and also from my own conversations with Iran, that this is not really a situation where this is an outlier, that this was something that happened frequently. And I think I really want to stress this, that this was a calculated way of saying things. I should kill myself. I feel suicidal because this conversation happening is making me feel like I have to say this. It's a reaction in which the things that Iran has put forward, this conversation that he's trying to have, which is just basically understanding what's going on in the relationship, leads to a situation where Zoe says, I should kill myself, and it is done in a subtle way to control Aaron, to tell Aaron that he has to check himself because these questions are not the questions that you ask your abuser. I think that's very clear, the way this constantly happens within these logs and what happens in the logs that weren't published. It's very clear that what's being put out from this statement is that the responsibility of however Zoe feels is on Aaron's shoulders. Okay, so now we're moving towards the end of the relationship. So Zoe says, yeah, I deleted my old Facebook. I'm sorry you felt that was shitty, and I do care too much, and it's kind of a problem. Right away, the apology I want to focus on. There's two ways to apologize. I'm sorry for something I did versus I'm sorry you feel a certain way. Zoe sticks with the second one. I'm sorry you felt a certain way. In this case, I'm sorry you felt that was shitty. She doesn't identify it being shitty. She doesn't take responsibility for it. It's clear cut. The responsibility falls on the victim or survivor's feelings for being hurt. It's on their shoulders. And then she continues, yeah, I blocked you on the new one because something happened I had to think. And I used FB to do work stuff and it was really fucking my shit up to try and work and talk to you in the same window. No, the old one is dead, like deactivated. Again, the responsibility falls on Aaron's shoulders. It was really fucking my shit up to try and work and talk to you. It's not, I need to take responsibility for my emotions. I'm not in a good state right now. It's not a sincere and open conversation about I need to set some personal boundaries because of what I'm going through. It's something you did to me, Aaron, is making me feel bad, and it's your fault, not mine. And again, this is something that we're constantly seeing. Again, continuing, because I'm having really shitty self-control issues and because you don't respect any of my requests for space or time at all. One of the things that's going to be an enormous video we'll be doing is gaslighting. But I want to focus particularly on here. She puts forward, I'm having really shitty self-control issues. Okay. And because you don't respect any of my requests for space or time at all. The two are kind of juxtaposed together in a way that kind of suggests that it's Aaron's fault for how she feels. You don't respect any of my requests for space or time. But he directly says, I've not messaged you in 4 days. And I'm willing to bet he has the logs to prove that too. So I think I want to put forward especially that she says, I'm having really shitty self-control issues. One of the things that we discussed earlier going into the abusive relationship kind of situation here, let me get it up, is an inability to take responsibility for your actions. As you'll see here, there's this focus on, I'm having really shitty self-control issues. I can't control myself and my emotions. I cannot control how I respond to others. Therefore, it is the responsibility of others around me to control themselves because my reactions are based on what they do, not myself. I think this is very clear. Again, it constantly is popping up. It feels like you're taking every chance I give you and throwing it away. I loved you, Zoe. You were the first. I want this to work. I don't see any chances being given. And here we go. And when I tell you to tend to either tell me I'm horrible, cut me off, or talk to me like I'm a child, or completely outright disbelieve me when I tell you the truth. So it's not as simple as you ask questions, and it feels dishonest to pretend that's just that. I think this is, again, going into the gaslighting situation, which we'll be discussing in a later video. But I think it's important to see here, too, that it's very clear that what Iran's doing is to get an understanding of the relationship and how things ended and where things rest. And right away, Zoe's quick to say, well, what you're doing is blaming me and calling me horrible and cutting me off and talk to me like I'm a child. Well, no. Where's that coming from? I think we need to be critical of why Zoe is saying this. And I think especially in this situation, it's, again, this blaming for what's going on right away. It's what you did to me. You tell me I'm horrible. You cut me off. You talk to me like I'm a child. You outright disbelieve me. Well, no. It's pretty clear even just reading these things that that's not really quite what's happening. We go back to the previous logs too. It's very clear that there's a kind of sensitivity and softness coming from Ron. So, no, I don't really quite agree. And I think it's important, too. We can continue to look at the logs and some of the other ones that were not published yet and see if what Zoe's saying actually really happened, but it doesn't seem to be from the context that we have. It seems, again, to be hyperbolically blaming Iran for something they probably did not do. This one's an interesting one. Then you ostracized me for a week while you were cheating on me. I was annoyed with you. While you were telling me that you love me. And trying to figure my shit out, too. I really wasn't fucking sitting here trying to puppet master you. Jesus fuck, you don't get to put your annoyance before your partner's consent or physical well-being. I know, I fucked up, I wasn't thinking about it like that. Why don't you understand that? Right away, removing responsibility for actions. I know, I fucked up. I wasn't thinking about it like that. Why don't you understand that? Right away, it's confrontational. Why don't you understand that I wasn't thinking about it like that? Why don't you understand that I can't take responsibility for my actions? The blame is thrust again on Iran for asking about the things going on and being upset. I think it's not just very confrontational, but immediately it comes to yelling right away. It might not be yelling literally one person next to another, but it's in all caps. Another thing, too, is while you were cheating on me, looking at why the cheating happened, right away, boom, I was annoyed with you. Right away, the justification for the cheating is, you did something to me that upset me, so I'm going to hurt you. It's something that Iran did that supposedly annoyed Zoe. Therefore, the responsibility of the action is not on Zoe's shoulders, it's on Iran's. I think if we look back at this and she says, I wasn't thinking about it like that, why don't you understand that? It's clear how she was thinking about it. I was annoyed with you, therefore it's justified to do it. Again, it's shifting responsibility not just externally, but also internally, too. I think that's important to understand why this abuse is happening in the first place. It's the shifting of responsibility. I fucked up. I wasn't thinking about it like that way. Why don't you understand that? Well, why is she asking him to understand I wasn't thinking about it like that? Zoe should understand the fact that what she did was hurtful, and that's a discussion you have to have within the boundaries of what's going on. I think, again, this is very clear. There's a shifting of responsibility that's extremely problematic. So let's move on to this log. It's from July 15th. So now you admit you deleted messages. Yes. And what else did you delete? Just Robin's and Maya's, because they both say I love you when they say goodbye. It doesn't mean anything, which we know right now is not quite true according to the information on Maya. And I didn't think for a second you'd fucking understand or care or listen to me or believe me. This is horrifying. You are still doing it. And Zoe responds, are you fucking serious? Whatever. Think what you want. I came clean. And now I'm starting over without you so I can actually fucking kill this part of me. So, again, it's this shifting of responsibility. But as you see, the response to what Iran says is kind of interesting, how Zoe responds. When Iran says that, well, first off, let's go back to what Zoe originally says. I didn't think for a second you'd fucking understand or care, listen to me, or believe me. So right away, shifting or justifying the actions and justifying what's exactly going on, because apparently there's something that Iran would do that would be bad. So you wouldn't understand or care or listen to me or believe me. Therefore, because you do something wrong, I'm justified to do something wrong. And it's interesting too, because this is an imagined kind of justification from Zoe. I didn't think you'd fucking understand. Not you didn't understand. It's I didn't think you would do this. I didn't think you would care. I didn't think you would listen to me. I didn't think you would believe me. All those things are internal justifications for these actions that are now being thrust onto Iran as blame. I didn't think these things about, I didn't think that you would respond X way, therefore I'm justified in doing something and blaming it on you for doing these things. I'm justified in hiding information because I made a conclusion in my head that X would happen. And then when Iran confronts Zoe about this, well, you're doing the same hurtful things you've done in the past, her response is, whatever. Are you fucking serious? Right away, we see right away, it's this focus on, after this behavior's been confronted, after what's going on's been confronted, are you fucking serious? Yelling at Iran right away, telling him he's doing something wrong, and she's saying, think what you want, I came clean. Basically saying that, well, what he thinks is irrelevant because she's starting her life over, and that it's something wrong with him for thinking that she's continuing this pattern of abuse and is going to continue doing unhealthy things. Think what you want, I came clean, I'm starting over, I can kill this part of me. So obviously because she's doing these things over, there's something missing in Iran's analysis. And I think that's a problem too. It's not just this shifting of responsibility, but circling around things and saying, well, your view of things is invalid. So let's see, next log. I don't want to keep playing this game where you keep insisting with righteous indignation until I tell you exactly why I know you're lying. You don't have to, but yeah, I'm sorry I deleted Robin and Maya's messages. I guess I don't trust you either. And nope, anyway, there's literally no point in arguing about it. I can't fix shit with us. I can't fix my shit while trying to do so. I need more space and time than 2 nights. We'll see this again in another log, but it's Zoe's going into this kind of idea that she's being put under pressure, and it's something that Iran is doing to Zoe that's hurting the relationship. I can't fix my shit. I need more space and time than 2 nights. Or rather, Zoe's making it sound like because Aaron's talking about these things, Zoe's making it sound as if because Aaron's bringing this up in conversation, it's upsetting her and it's making her feel like she's under pressure. Well, it's not really quite the case. They're just having basically a conversation about what's been happening and why those things happened. But right away, it's almost as if she's very subtly saying the responsibility for what happened relies on Iran's shoulders. I need more space and time than 2 nights. I can't fix my shit. It's as if she's basically saying, you're making me feel pressured and I can't fix myself because you're putting pressure on me that's unrealistic. Well, he never quite demanded that she fix herself in 2 days, although I think it's clear that he wants a conversation about what happened. It's a shifting of responsibility that's very subtle, but the responsibility is in the way she reacts. You're doing something to me that's putting pressure under me. I can't fix my shit. And also focusing on this idea, I guess I don't trust you either. Focusing on this idea that, well, really it's not quite Iran that's at blame here of the cheating right now. It's Zoe that's been put on the stand, so to speak. And right away she's quick to quip, I guess I don't trust you either. As if there's something that Iran's doing that is making her actions justified. I don't trust you, that's why I deleted the logs. We go back to what we previously talked about with the other case for deleting, in which she again made a conclusion based on, I don't think you would do something, I don't think so, therefore I'm justified in acting in the way I did. In this case, I don't think I trust you, therefore I'm justified in doing something that would further cover up the issues I've done or hurt you. So again, it's recurring. I'm sorry that when you said I really am that person a few hours ago, you were still speaking as the person who wasn't. And she says, I'm sorry I couldn't do it quickly enough and under so much pressure. I deleted the messages after you left and me felt like a shitbag and should have told you that. Everything hurt and I wasn't thinking. Everything with you hurts too much to think at all. Again, she's making it sound as if by simply bringing up the conversation that right away it's something that Iran's doing that's making her feel bad. Instead of owning her emotions, saying, well, it's in a way I react to things that is causing the problem. It's, well, you did something that made me feel like shit. Every time I think about you hurts, not something hurts in me because of every time I think about you. It's this shifting of the responsibility of the emotions onto the object and not the self, which is a serious problem that we keep on seeing going through this kind of theme. So next one, and what's been stopping you? What turned you into this suddenly? Going through a little bit about it, this confrontation, and then Zoe says, this is 7:15, 12 p.m., I don't know, it just fucking happens and I can't stop myself. I've completely lost control of myself in this situation with you, and I don't know how or why, and I don't know how to fix it. It's not logical, it's not rational, it's just fucking compulsion, and I don't know why. It's only with you. It's fucked up, and I need to not be near you so I can fucking fix it. Boom, right away that ending phrase. I need to not be near you so I can fucking fix it and salt the earth where it comes from. It's this very subtle implication that the reason why this happened is because of something that has to do with an outside source, in this case the survivor, triggering this I can't control myself. And it's a common theme too for blame shifting. Let's see. That they feel someone else is doing something wrong, that they don't have control over what they do or their emotions. Blame shifting for feelings constantly. It's this state of my emotions are not in my control, someone else has control over them. I can't control how I think. And this is very clear right over here. I've completely lost control, and it has to do with something with being near you. So the focus is completely on me being with someone dictates my emotions, and therefore the responsibility of how I react is based on that. As you can see, this is very problematic for a very obvious reason. It's putting forward the idea that Iran is responsible for how Zoe interacts and reacts with others, and if only she could control her emotions when she wasn't around him, then things would be fixed. It's very clear that, and she makes it sound like she can't, that there's something preventing her that she can't fix. It's not that she's trying to learn to control her emotions, it's that other people trigger emotions she can't help at all, and she emphasizes this very hard. It's the situation where she can't control herself. These emotions just happen. The responsibility is on this strange outside force of the in-between of the self where you can't control anything you think about. And that's just not true. I think it's important in this case to understand that to say I can't control myself, I can't stop myself is not particularly true, and it should be also something that we should focus on and be skeptical of, the fact that this is yelled at him. It's in all caps. I can't control myself. Yelled in all caps. As anyone knows, all caps can be intimidating to look at. I think it's clear, even if this isn't physical yelling, there's an intimidation factor in what's being written and how. So definitely not just the shifting of responsibility for emotions, but the way that the message is also told to us. It's screamed to us. 6. This is earlier into the relationship. I know it's unfair, but thinking of you fucking some stupid girl that sees you as some unfounded or tortured mystery makes me feel a lot of negative things I don't understand, or even just some mystery, or some summit to climb, or just some sexity. So, looking at this, right away she says, I know it's unfair, but thinking of you doing something makes me feel something. Now, it's interesting here because the context of this conversation is not them working it out together and having an open and healthy communication. It's, I know this is unfair, but this makes me feel bad, and I'm really going to pressure you to do something about it. So it's odd right away because the responsibility of I'm thinking of something is the way I'm thinking about something is freaking me out. I'm going to put it on your shoulders. So I think it's important to kind of focus on it's the unfair, but thinking of you fucking some stupid girl that sees you as some tortured mystery makes me feel a lot of negative things. It's the actions that Iran does outside of what's currently going on within their relationship, or lack thereof, is making her feel upset. It's the responsibility is, again, on Iran's shoulders for her emotions. What he does as an independent, autonomous individual is making her feel upset. Even if it's imagined, it's making her feel upset. Instead of owning up to the idea that I feel this way and I gotta deconstruct it, it's you doing something, the things you do makes me feel upset. So as you see, it's the things that you do as the responsibility for feeling upset, and it's not quite acknowledged that there's a problem with what's going on. Next one. And I keep flinching whenever you message me, wondering if it's going to be the time you tell me. Also, I wonder if you just lie about it anyway. So again, it's this kind of assumed actions causing her to be upset, and this putting the responsibility on Iran just simply for existing and messaging. I keep flinching whenever you message me, wondering if it's going to be the time. It's the responsibility, again, of the emotions is not on her shoulders, it's on his, but it's just simply doing mundane things is causing this to happen. It's really kind of sad and upsetting. This responsibility for what happens comes down to simple kind of actions is what's at the root of what's going is upsetting her. She's not owning up to the fact that I have a problem with the message going off and how my anxiety is triggering it. It's I keep flinching because of something you do, and what you do is upsetting me. Your reactions are in control of my emotions, and that's unhealthy to deal with, and it sets this precedent of the responsibility for the abuser's emotions are on someone else. And this one is 522. God, I want to talk to you so badly, but I know it's unfair, and I know it's hard, and I know you're okay and fucking shit fuck ass. I wish I didn't still fucking love you. I've been crying my fucking eyes out all day, and I shouldn't even tell you that. God, please be doing better than me. Shit, sorry, I shouldn't say that shit. I should be giving you space. I'm gonna go drink till I can't feel feelings anymore. Please ignore anything I send for the rest of the night. This is really more guilt tripping, so we won't be doing too much of it. But I want to point out this one line. I apparently can't control myself too well on this front, this loving you stupid idiot teenager front. It's this inability to take control of one's own emotions and acknowledge the fact that there is internal emotional issues that need to be taken responsibility for. And in fact, instead, what it is constantly messaging about, I feel like shit, I'm gonna go drink until I can't feel things anymore because I'm so upset. I'm just so devastated. I need to tell you these things. And there's a healthy way to say that. And there is a healthy way to say that. I'm not saying that you can't communicate with your partner. It needs to be an open, healthy conversation, though. And what's going over here is that it's this idea that her inability to control herself and her drinking is caused by this kind of external issue going on with what's going on with the relationship, how they're interacting with each other. I can't control myself, so I'm just going to drink away all of my emotions. That's really unhealthy to read, and it sets a bad precedent for how Zoe deals with her emotions. So the next one. What thing made you think I slept with someone? I don't know why I can't so much as smile at a flirtatious remark without feeling like I'm being unfaithful to someone I'm not even dating. I just asked because, like, if it was less than sleeping with someone, I don't know if I'd want to know or not. I definitely wouldn't have a right to ask. Ugh, sorry, just really meant to ask about the biohacking thing, and then I missed you, so I went to Tumblr and saw deleted posts and sketchy stuff. And ugh, I hate myself for even asking. So as you'll see right away, one of the things that pops out is I saw deleted posts and sketchy stuff. So what's the sketchy stuff? What's the deleted posts? Is responsibility for emotions relying on something that Iran did? Is there something sketchy about her actions? I feel like it's implied that there is. There's something sketchy about his actions in her eyes that's causing her to react this way. And this is how she covers it up. She asks about something, she's unsure of it, so she starts to kind of decline or transition into this, ugh, I'm sorry, I really just meant to ask about these things, and then I got upset, I'm not in control of myself, I hate myself, I can't control my emotions. The responsibility shift from her as an individual to something else. It's this inability to control the emotions that's in control. This inability to control is the control. Because of this inability to control, it then leads to, I don't know why I can't so much as smile, is something that's hypersensitively focused on and that she becomes quickly insecure and anxious about. And this anxiety is blamed a little bit on Iran's shoulders, but also her inability to control her emotions, instead of identifying that there's a larger problem with what's currently going on. This one's a bit of a doozy. To be upfront, I feel irrationally weird about you crashing with X, even though the context makes it kind of irrational. I'm going to get over it, but I guess full disclosure, I feel weird about it. So what constitutes crashing with X? Basically having a slumber party and one other person, but still, I know it's irrational. Like, I know I don't like that, and I'll get over it. You have this kind of claim right away. To be upfront, I feel irrationally weird, and the context makes it irrational, but I feel uncomfortable. And she tries to backpedal over this with, I think it's stupid and I'll get over it. It's this focus on this imagined kind of situation of discomfort. I feel irrationally weird, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. It's as if something happens, the responsibility relies on Iran's shoulders. Okay. I'm usually not vigilant, but I can cut the whole thing short if you really want. You're clear you don't want to. It also makes me feel a bit weird when you're like, oh, but she's going through so much. Like, hi, I've blank and blank this week, and it sucks because it feels like you're defaulting to making her more comfortable because I'm not going to be a dick about this, but like, I don't even think you're realizing that in doing so, you're kind of prioritizing here in a way that sort of sucks for me. Normally these two things wouldn't be the dichotomy, her comfort and mine, but she has made multiple passes at you and been a dick about me, so she's kind of made them that way. So it's kind of
odd right away. Instead of having an open conversation about Iran having a good friend and him setting boundaries and discussing things, which he's willing to do. He says, I'm willing to cut things short if you really want to. But Zoe right away says, oh, you clearly don't. And puts the responsibility of what's going on someone else's shoulders. So this is a little bit of a one that moves away from the responsibility blaming, but not quite fully. It's this idea that Iran's willing to create these boundaries, but Zoe right away puts forward that he's somehow prioritizing one person over the other. And because of this justification, or this reasoning of what's going on, you're prioritizing someone, therefore my imagined view of your prioritizing makes me feel uncomfortable. The discomfort doesn't rely on her as an individual feeling these emotions, but this imagined logic of you doing X makes me feel Y. It's not an open, kind of healthy conversation about why these emotions are appearing, but it's this suggested justification that she's basically inferring and concluding, and somehow her discomfort therefore relies on both Iran's shoulders and his friend's shoulders. So let's move on. Nah, some people are just so-so, but as for the hard time she's going through, aside from suicidal friend and PTSD, she just lost her job. And Zoe right away says, are we seriously comparing shit I'm dealing with and shit she's dealing with now? And Iran says, no, I just want to give you context. And Zoe says, you're missing the point. Your shit with her is adding to my shit to stress out about. It's not like I don't already have enough, so in making her more comfortable, you're making me less. And in that, you're prioritizing her. And you just met her. She's been pretty shitty about me, so that kind of sucks from where I'm sitting. You see, here's the problem right away. Zoe claims your shit with her is adding to my shit to stress out about. It's as if the relationship that Iran's having with this other person, it's not a relationship. It's clearly makes it clear that it's platonic. It's as if this platonic relationship is causing Zoe to be stressed. It's not Zoe's own emotions, but what Iran does with someone else is causing Zoe to be stressed. And therefore, because someone else is causing Zoe's emotions, this creates a dichotomy, or this kind of juxtaposition where because Iran does something to make someone else help them feel comfortable, Zoe right away says, you're making me less comfortable. So it's this binary. You can do one or the other. You can't do both. And what you do, either way, Zoe makes it clear, it's either way, is controlling my emotions. I can't control my emotions. You control my emotions. And you can either make me feel like shit or you can make me feel uncomfortable. And from where I'm sitting, that's the way it is. And again, we constantly see this happening. You control my emotions, not me. And no, I'm just trying to give you context. Yeah, it sucks that you've just decided that I get to accept that harm that I didn't ask for, at all, and that you wouldn't, want to avoid that of your own accord. I have to bring it up and feel like an asshole because I really feel like an asshole right now. And in the end, you should do whatever you want, but I feel like I'd be lying if I hid that this sucked for me. This isn't a very mature and healthy kind of view of what's going on currently. It's this look, basically, that by bringing it up, by discussing this, Zoe feels like an asshole. And Iran, by discussing these things and trying to have a very mature and nuanced conversation about this situation that's happening between the two of them, it's making her feel like an asshole. Instead of saying, well, the situation we're currently in is making me feel upset, or I feel as an individual upset based on the situation that we're currently in, it's right away, what you're doing is making me feel like an asshole. By bringing this up, you're making me feel like an asshole. It's putting the emotions, the feelings, the self onto someone else. What you're doing is making me feel like an asshole. Here's another big one. Then you're just going to blame me for it. You're not understanding. I feel weird because, again, you're cool being bros with girls that want you and have expressed interest in you while knowing about me. I feel really fucking weird about that sentiment and that you're like, oh, no big deal at all of this. And then she also jumps into this. Fuck, I'm half an hour late to a meeting now. As if this conversation is to blame for that instead of basically our own time management. But I think this is really interesting too. I feel really fucking weird about that sentiment. I feel weird because, again, what you do. I feel weird because of something you do, not I feel weird because of how I'm feeling about things. I feel weird because you did something to me that makes me feel weird. The responsibility is on your shoulders of feeling weird about things. And she says, too, over here, when Iran says, we can talk about it after your meeting, it won't be relevant, I won't be hanging out with her, she says, well, that sucks, and I'm sorry it's an all-or-nothing thing to you. And I never asked you to do that. Well, no, she put pressure on him to do that and put the responsibility on his shoulders, saying basically you have to do this because of this binary of you do something that makes me comfortable or you do something that makes me feel uncomfortable. And then it goes on, I'm pretty uncool with you doing that on my behalf, but I never asked you to because it's unlikely you're not going to hold that against me. So cool, this whole thing has been a great no-win. Well, no, it really hasn't been a no-win situation. In fact, this is gaslighting. I'm pretty uncool with you doing that on my behalf when I never asked you to. But it was pressured on him to do this because you'd make her feel uncomfortable if you didn't. So it's very clear there's not just this thrust of responsibility, you make me feel comfortable, uncomfortable either way, but that falls into gaslighting because in certain ways, maybe Zoe's not asking, but she's pressuring him to do something. And that's where that comes in, this playing with phrases and wordings and feelings in order to pressure someone to do something, definitely abusive. What is your proposed solution? I thought mine was a good not all or nothing approach. Ugh, fuck it, I rescheduled my meeting. Why? Ugh, remember when I said at the start of this that I'd just get over it? I'm gonna try and just do that. I hate arguing with you and this whole topic makes me feel like utter shit. Not approaching the topic, not discussing why these things make her feel like shit, but rather I'm gonna just try and get over it, and by talking about these things, I feel like shit. It's not owning up for the emotions, it's saying something outside of the self is making the self feel like shit. And also putting responsibility for the meeting being rescheduled basically on someone else's shoulders and not her own. Not saying, I just feel in a bad place, I have to reschedule this, but really focusing on the fact that she has to go to this meeting and he should feel bad that the meeting's being altered. So the goal of this approach is that they get close enough that more or less the only times Blank and I hang out is when she happens to be with Blank. Nothing you're saying is helping, so I'm letting it go, dude. You got what you wanted, so there's no need to try and argue for it more. Yeah, but two people's needs are dichotomous here, so I'm just going to take the hit and find some other way to deal with these feelings. Because, yeah, knowing how you feel and shit, there's nothing in this that won't suck for me, and I'd rather choose the one that sucks less for you if I'm going to feel shitty about this regardless. So that ending phrase is really the key, I think, here. I'd rather choose the one that sucks less for you if I'm going to feel shitty about this regardless. Either way, no matter what he does, she feels shitty in the end. The responsibility is the choice that he makes in the end is going to cause her to feel shitty. It's just one's going to make her feel less shitty over the other. But either way, it's this choice of what's going to happen is going to make her feel upset, and it's not her that's in control of feeling upset, it's Iran that's in control in her eyes of who's upset. And he's willing to meet her halfway on this, but she really makes it clear in her eyes it's the choice that he makes is making her feel shitty no matter what. And this expands further when they're talking about it. No, I resent the ever-living fuck out of Blank for this, and that will likely never change because, again, this is a fucked up thing to have to deal with from some asshole I've never met. Blah, blah, blah. You tell me she's a good person and shit. Great, maybe for you. And then out of nowhere, also know that I will never put you in this position. Right away, putting the blame, inferring that he's put her in a position, that he's making her feel a certain way. She's not owning up to her emotions, saying, I feel uncomfortable about these certain things because of my emotions. It's, you're putting me in a position. You're doing something in which I feel shitty because you did something to me. You put me in this position, and she's implying she wouldn't put him in this position, which we know is not actually true. But still, she focuses on this point that it's him doing something to her. It's his responsibility for her emotions and feelings because he did something wrong. See, I'm trying not to say things that would likely be really mean right now or less mean, more things I would feel like a dick for later. I'm going to do my best to not resent you for this, for what it's worth, because I don't want to. This is a really interesting passage to focus on. I'm trying not to say things right now that would be really mean or more things I would feel like a dick later for. It's her showing that she can't really quite control her emotions. I'm trying so hard not to say something mean. I'm trying really hard. It's coming out anyway, but I'm trying so hard not to say something mean. And I'm trying to do the best to not resent you for something, but I'm resenting you in the end because you did something that hurt me because it's your responsibility for my emotions. My emotions are in your court and you did something wrong and that's your responsibility. It's right away. It's inability to take control and for her own emotions. It's this inability to say, my emotions, I own them, and I feel this certain way, and I need to control my emotions. She's not making that clear. And I do want to say, everyone has unhealthy moments. Everyone feels, to a certain extent, that they react with emotions. Everyone has these certain kind of situations where they feel like they're confined and can't really react healthily. It's healthy to have a few of these moments. It's not healthy to have what I basically ended up coming up with was about 47 of these. That's not healthy. 47 is not a healthy sign in the course of 3 relationship conversations. 3 relationship conversations, and I had nearly 50 of these. I didn't even include the other ones because they're either subtle or they didn't quite bring about the point without further context. But there's 47 of these to go through, and my God, it took an hour to go through it too. This constant not going through, not taking responsibility for yourself, not saying that it is me as the individual who feels these things and we need to deconstruct it in an open and healthy way, and not saying, well, maybe I feel unhealthy on certain things that I should talk to someone about this, but you did something to me, makes me feel bad, therefore it's your fault because I'm not in control of my emotions. I'm trying very hard to think about other things, but I just feel shitty and miserable and like I don't matter to you as much as you do to me. And survival instincts are telling me to try and distance myself, but they are stupid and built from a broken system of dealing with other people who aren't you, so I can't even listen to or rely on the shit that has served me really well in the past. This kind of focus, and you'll see in the first sentence, I just feel shitty and miserable and like I don't matter to you as much as you do to me. Because of the conversation they're having at the time, right away, the responsibility is on her shoulders. I feel shitty and miserable and like I don't matter to you as much as you do to me because of this conversation we're having, because of how your actions are affecting me, whether real or imagined. I don't matter to you as much as you do to me is the walk away that she has. And this is really, again, more into guilt tripping. This is something we'll talk about later. It isn't so much the responsibility thrust, but she does put this thrust that I feel shitty because of an imagined response, because of an action that seems like you're meeting, Iran's willing to meet her halfway on, but I just feel shitty because of X thing. Really, the end takeaway here is the things you do to me make me feel shitty. And I feel like, based on what's going on, I don't matter to you as much as you do to me. Really more guilt tripping, but again, the actions that you do make me feel a certain way. This is further emphasized by the idea that because of her past experiences, she can't be a healthy person in control of her emotions anymore. This broken system leads to no control. Let's see, 46. I just feel like if I were in your place, I'd be disgusted by anyone trying to mess shit up with us because you are the most important thing in my life, and I wouldn't want to continue to get close with someone that meant you harm. And it doesn't feel like the reverse is true, or that we just don't view it similarly. So as you'll see over here, I just feel like if I were in your place, I'd be disgusted by anyone trying to mess shit up with us because you are the most important thing in my life. And this kind of focus on Iran as being central to that, as being really in the middle of this. And it's not just that you are important to me, but I wouldn't want to continue to get close with someone that meant you harm. It's this kind of focus. I wouldn't want to continue to get close with someone that meant you harm. So it's right away saying that what you are doing is doing harm to me. And it's very clear that what she's saying is the responsibility lies on Iran's shoulders for this kind of not even really fully discussed or understood what's completely going on in among these 3 individuals. It's just right away, you are doing harm to me, your actions are doing harm, and my perceived view of things means that there is harm going on. Not understanding that maybe there's a little bit of confusion, or maybe there's a little bit of a middle ground to meet things on. Right away, what you do is harming me. And this is something that it's very clear Zoe's not really moving away from. Here's one in particular that's moving into the blame shifting for feelings and the positive role of things. Iran, I love you so fucking incredibly much. I can't imagine life without being with you anymore. The thought of it freaks me out. The thought of it freaking me out also freaks me out. Never thought I'd be like this with anyone. It's pretty much a major paradigm shift for a girl who freaked out at the idea of not being 100% free forever in all things. But I don't want to pressure you to do anything. Well, of course, we know right away that's not true. It's actually gaslighting. I don't want to pressure you, when despite the fact that the previous things we've talked about have shown her pressuring him to do something. But I can't imagine life without being with you anymore. I can't imagine life without you anymore. Meaning the positive things and my general feelings in life are reliant on you as an individual. The thought of not having you in my life upsets me, freaks me out. I can't even think of the possibility of us not being together. It's putting the very essence of living together as in the center of the relationship. I can't imagine living without you. The thought of it freaks me out. The thought of it freaking me out also freaks me out. This kind of anxiety-driven view of things, that the positive things of the relationship are so vital to her life that she can't, if she needs to healthily leave it, cannot healthily leave it. It's almost like this, you make me happy, you make me feel good about myself kind of signs. You are important in my life. I can't imagine it without you. You're the most important thing in my life. It's a little heavy-handed. It's a little too much. But that's an overview of what I've seen so far. The shifting of responsibility, shifting of blame, inability to take control of one's own emotions and own up to it. No sincere apologies, responsibilities at all. It's constantly something I've noticed in these logs. This is only the start of this series of going through the posts. I really want to focus on them to show not just what's been going on within the posts that people haven't been noticing, but how there's different patterns of abuse happening that often go just in general people don't see and understand. So that's just been a little bit of an overview. I'll be continuing with this shortly. We're going to ramp up from very subtle things to the very clear, very things like suicidal threats and gaslighting, which are common throughout the post. But that's just a little overview for now. Thank you for listening for so long. I understand this might be a little longer than you might be used to for this kind of thing. If you enjoyed this or you thought it was informative, if you thought that it helped you with your analysis, please spread it. It's the only thing I ask. I really want to put this situation to bed and identify how abuse survivors see this is abusive. So please, if you like this, please make sure to share it. That's all. Thank you.